revolution, especially compared to Huawei's Mate 20 Pro flagship from the end of last year. You still have the Kirin 980 processor on the inside, you still have pretty much the same specs on the internals, you have a 2340 by 1080p display, OLED, it's still as beautiful as ever, and Huawei's done its utmost to reduce the bezels to be as tiny as possible and has put this dewdrop notch right up here at the top. That's the familiar stuff, that's the evolutionary stuff, but what Huawei is saying with this phone is the camera is the selling point. The P in the P series is about photography after all. Now, what you have here is a 4-camera setup. The middle lens is a 40 megapixel super spectrum sensor. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Then there's a 20 megapixel ultra wide sensor. And then you have the periscope lens, which does 5x optical zoom. And in total, Huawei claims a 10x hybrid zoom, which the company claims is lossless by combining the signal and the data from the main sensor and the telephoto sensor down here. Those are 3 cameras, and up here just under the flash you have a flood illuminator, and then you have a time of flight camera, which is used for depth detection. Depth detection, why do you want to know that? Well, one of the things is you get extra nice bokeh. So what you have is a gradual effect rather than essentially the 2D cutout effect where the person in the front looks entirely separated from his background. In this shot in particular, I also really like the gradation here between the blacks and the grays, and also the texture on the jacket. And again, the separation from the person in the foreground that we want to keep in focus and the background. And even on the edges where you have more challenging things such as the hairline and so on, you still have a bit of imperfection, but it's really much improved, especially for Huawei, and it's one of the better ones that I've seen. So I'm not an enthusiast for portrait modes, but with this new time of flight sensor that the Huawei's added, I do see a major improvement from the company, and I might be tempted to start using this. The main sensor here still has 40 megapixel resolution, which is then used to combine 4 pixels into one, giving you a 10 megapixel standard resolution. But the interesting thing is something that Huawei calls super spectrum. So instead of an RGB breakdown of the subpixels, you get a RYYB, which means you get a red sensor, 2 yellow sensors and a blue sensor. And because the yellow sensors absorb red and green light, that actually means you get more light into each pixel with this new arrangement. Huawei's also created a new AI-driven HDR Plus mode, and I'm really excited about this one. It automatically creates an exposure map for the entire frame. So that tells it, here's the sun, I need to lower exposure on that, here's the subject, here's the face, it detects faces, and it automatically adjusts the exposure on the particular section so that the face is better exposed, the sun's brightness is tamed in, and you get just a better overall shot, a better exposure because it knows what it's looking at. Now the big deal as far as Huawei is concerned is its new 10x optical zoom. It's really easy to access. You have this zoom adjustment here on the side, you tap it once, you go to 5x, and that switches from the main sensor over here to the telephoto one at the bottom. You press it again, it combines the 2 sensors, but then here's what happens. When it's that far zoomed in, you do need to pull away from your subject in order to be able to focus on it. One cool thing that Huawei has done, and it's really a necessary thing, is it's put optical image stabilization on both the telephoto sensor and the main camera. What this gives you is an amazing level of flexibility in terms of focusing. It's almost like having a handheld camera with a physical optical zoom. You have this ultra wide angle where you can capture the entire window. Then you have the regular view, which gives you a view of the church. You get 5x, so you can start picking out details. And then by 10x, you can almost read any signs if there were any over there. And the detail, I've taken a few sample shots with this camera already. The detail is really impressive, and it definitely compares much better to cameras where you take a shot and then you try and crop into it to achieve the same level of zoom. So as I say, beside the camera, the Huawei P30 Pro is quite an evolutionary device. It has the same Kirin 980 processor as the Mate 20 Pro, and I have zero complaints about that. This is a 7nm processor, it has dual NPUs for all the AI capabilities that Huawei builds into its EMUI, and there are real ones, to be fair. Huawei has shown statistics that show that its devices get slower over time at a lower rate than its competitors such as the Samsung Galaxy Note devices. And that's down to Huawei's AI optimizations and just keeping the phone running as fast as possible. Huawei does its usual thing of putting a massive battery on the inside of this device, 4200 mAh battery. It also has 40-watt wired charging, which gets you 70% of the battery refilled within the first 30 minutes of charging. You have fast wireless charging, you have reverse wireless charging, so you can charge your other accessories via the back of this phone. And there are a couple of other cool additions that Huawei has made. One of them is you no longer have an earpiece. In order for Huawei to reduce the notch to its absolutely minimum size, it has removed the earpiece and it's using electromagnetic levitation, the company says, in order to basically create a resonance in the display which gives you the sound that you would usually get from the earpiece. That does mean you don't have stereo speakers on this phone. You're just going to have the one main speaker down here at the bottom, which is doing most of the work, and then you have the earpiece. But then Huawei does make the point that you get a more private call, because with this mode of creating sound, the only person that hears the sound coming from the top is you when you're on the call. That does also mean that Huawei is getting rid of its face unlock technology, the sophisticated one that mirrors Apple's Face ID that it has in the Mate 20 Pro, but just like the Mate 20 Pro, the P30 Pro has the in-screen fingerprint sensor. It's optical. Huawei says it's faster and it's better. I didn't like the Mate 20 Pro fingerprint sensor, so I think it's important that Huawei has improved this. So this is going to require a bit of testing. The sides on this phone are curved, but they're less curved than on the Mate 20 Pro, and I think that's a major improvement. The one sacrifice that Huawei makes relative to Mate 20 Pro, which had its camera array in the middle of the phone, is that with the cameras all clustered in one side, you get plenty of wobble when you put the P30 Pro on a flat surface. So Huawei has yet to detail some of the final specifications for this device, such as the RAM and how much storage you'll be able to get on these devices, but those will pop up along with the price and the full color options at Huawei's official announcement event in Paris. So alongside the P30 Pro, Huawei is today announcing the Huawei P30. It is very much what it looks like. It's a cut down version of the P30 Pro. It's smaller, 6.1-inch display, still 2340 by 1080 resolution, still that dewdrop notch, and you still get most of the same camera setup. However, it's a triple camera rather than the quad camera of the P30 Pro. You get smaller resolution on the wide angle lens. You get a smaller maximum zoom, 3x optical from this system and 5x hybrid max zoom versus 10x with the P30 Pro. The battery is smaller on this, 3650 mAh rather than 4200 with the P30 Pro, and the charging is not as fast. But the processor on the inside, the quality of the display, the same super spectrum main camera sensor, it's all in here with the P30. So I think Huawei has done a really good job of balancing the comparison between the P30 and the P30 Pro. These are significantly different devices. Even physically, the P30 is quite flat. It doesn't have the same curvature on the side of the display that the P30 Pro has. I'm anticipating the P30 will be significantly cheaper than the P30 Pro, and both of them have their advantages, with the P30 obviously being more of the budget model. And when I say both of them have their advantages, let's not forget, the P30 still has a headphone jack, which the P30 Pro does not. But Huawei's answer to that is a brand new pair of earphones, which it calls the Huawei FreeLace. Now you may be looking at these and thinking they're just another pair of neck buds, and to some extent they are. But you can disconnect them, one from the other, and then you get a USB-C plug, which you can plug into your phone to charge the headphones. This will automatically pair the earphones to the phone, which is neat. You can get 4 hours worth of listening out of just 5 minutes of charging. A full charge will get you 18 hours of music playback, which for a pair of really light, well-balanced earphones, that's a lot. And the other thing is they're magnetized, so you can answer a call by opening them up and also play and pause music. So this is a neat accessory that Huawei is announcing alongside the P30 Pro and the P30.